Hello, this is Chala Dincoy, CEO and founder of The Repositioning Expert, welcoming you to another edition of my crazy podcast. Yeah, so welcome to the Naked Marketing Podcast. We have Wade Galt as my next guest with his happy shirt, and he's going to tell us who he helps and what he does for a living. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Chala. I work with entrepreneurs to help them create the lifestyle that they're looking for. So I help them help more people and make more money in less time, doing what they do best so they can create the time outside of work to enjoy their family, their friends, their life, and everything else.
That sounds like a really good life. How did you just one day wake up and decide to do this?
No, dad's an entrepreneur. Mom is a philosopher slash thinker. So I got to watch my father have really pretty big success in the 80s. And I got to watch him and a lot of his friends do really well. And I saw a couple things. I saw the good side of the freedom that came with it. I also saw that while the money was really cool to have, like many people have said, it was simply an amplifier. The people that were happy, they had more happy times. The people that weren't so happy, unfortunately, the money didn't fix it. But I definitely decided at that point I was going to be an entrepreneur in some form or fashion. So I was the kid that was selling candy from their backpack in school. I had a lawn business. I did different things. But when I was younger, I had the time freedom and I wanted more money. Well, once I hit the corporate world, I had money but wanted more time freedom. So I always was looking towards creating that sort of opportunity for myself. And once I really got a handle on that, and as I was working with some of my clients in another part of their business, we kind of both worked on that together and got there.
So you mentioned that you used to work in corporate, and I worked in corporate for 18 years. I was a slave to Pepsi, Pizza Hut, Frito-Lay. What on earth would possess a born entrepreneur to go and work for corporate?
So my father is an insurance agency owner, and the company he represents at that time, they said, hey, we want you to come inside the company first. We don't want you to just go and work for the agency owner. And plus also coming out of college, if I worked for his agency, it would be me with a bunch of other, I don't know, mid-40s people, and working in the company, I could meet other people my age. So I figured, okay, there's some social to it. So I enjoyed it. I got to do some projects. I got to do some corporate stuff. I did learn a lot. So I'm grateful. But after 7 years, I was ready to do my own thing.
That's amazing. So how long have you had the coaching business that's teaching people to work less?
So I've had it for my insurance agency owners, who's my core market, sort of the market I've worked on for 35 plus years. I've had it for them for about 10 to 12 years. And then for entrepreneurs in general, I've had it for about 6 years. And so what happened is, as I was working with these insurance agency owners, I have a software company that helps them compensate their team members and motivate them financially if they do really well. And I'd also do sales coaching, just other generic coaching to help them grow their business. And as I was working with one gentleman one day, we were talking about his profitability. And he just, as an off comment, said he hadn't spent a lot of time with his son, and his son was now in college. And I'd seen a lot of that. I'd seen a lot of, it's almost like a first world sob story, but it was the situation of he'd worked really hard, good guy. And by the time he was ready to hang out with his son was heading off to college. So he didn't make time when he was, in the kids' younger ages. So I said, well, why don't you just spend some time with him, go do some cool stuff. So the dad made some plans. They went and did some NASCAR racing, like one of those tracks where you can do that stuff. And so they got together, did some cool stuff. So I checked in with him 6 months later. Wade, that was awesome. Thanks for the idea. Great. Okay, cool. So we worked on some other stuff in his business, said, let's check in again in 6 months. We had some milestones. 6 months never came. He passed away. He was in his mid-50s from a heart attack.
Oh,
and yeah. And so it was one of those things. Sorry?
It's probably the racing.
I don't know, but it was one of those things where it was like, he missed, like, at least he got that time with his son.
Yeah.
But then I realized how important that part of it was. See, I'd been raised with that, so I already kind of knew that was important, but other people didn't. So I started focusing more of my business on that. So with my insurance agency clients, I created a couple different programs under different names and then settled at the one that's called Automatic Insurance Agency, which helps them in their business model. Basically, it's a 3-day weekend, 4-day work week coaching program for them, but it's specific to their model. And now I help entrepreneurs and employees and freelancers and side hustlers with a company called 3-Day Weekend Club to basically do the same thing.
So take me through the process that you would employ. Let's say you take me and like I'm a really bad example because I work very, very few days and very few hours. I'm obsessed with working out and I charge a lot. So, I sort of got there before I met you, but take me through the processes of if I was like a normal person, what would you do to my business?
Well, the first thing is we have to find a reason why you're going to do it. If you don't have a reason why, you're not going to do it. So we all know that when we're getting ready for vacation, we can cram and get some stuff done. We can be hyper productive in a short period of time with a good enough reason. If you don't have a good reason, let's first talk as an entrepreneur who actually has the quicker ability usually to do this. If you don't have a good enough reason, you're going to hit Friday and say, well, why don't I just show up to work? Like you have your working out. I'm at the beach playing volleyball every Friday. That's my thing. I love that. I play. Yeah. So if you have something, and also we have, my wife and I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, so I'm very involved in their lives. So there's a good reason. If there's not a good reason, you're just not going to do it any more than you're not going to work for more if the money doesn't mean something more to you, unless you're really just, Uber driven. So first there's that, but then once you get that, it's actually ridiculously simple. If you take at least a 2 to 3 year view on it, you might get there quicker. But if you think about it, in a job, we assume, let's even just go pure employee, we assume we're going to get raises over a certain period of time, but we've decided that those are financial raises. And if somebody doesn't give us a financial raise after a certain amount of time, we say, well, we'll quit, we'll leave, we'll go somewhere else. But nowhere have we said, well, we want more paid time off, we want more free time. That's just not been part of the equation. And so right now, with what's happened with COVID, a lot of people are adding work from home to the equation. And that's also another lifestyle improvement if you're used to doing a commute. And I did that for a while and I didn't like it. And so that's just another one of those things you can negotiate with. So if a person pays you ridiculously well, it might be harder, but you might even say, well, hey, you know what? I'm good. Can I work these 4 days? Or again, define the results. It always has to be, whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee, what are the results that will allow me to do this? If you didn't make enough money, if you didn't charge high fees for what you're doing, you couldn't afford to do it. You might say, I want to go work out, but you wouldn't be making enough. So it's really about starting with that. And then from there, it's all the other stuff we normally do in business, being more productive, focusing, all the other things we've learned, but now with a more inspired reason, a better reason to want to do it.
I love it. I love it. So this is a marketing show after all. So how do you find your clients?
Sure. So the toughest thing that most people seem to find is, how do I go from that employee to the entrepreneur, the side hustler, starting a business? That was one plan. I sort of had two plans of how I've done my marketing. The first was when I left being an employee to being an entrepreneur. That was the harder part. And yet the marketing wasn't that difficult, because in my case, what I did, which quite a few people do, is I went and consulted for some of the same people I had worked with, because I knew their model. I simply wanted more freedom and flexibility. The corporate world didn't offer it. I said, I'm going to go out on my own. I'm going to do my own thing. And so that was kind of like LinkedIn is. It was a long game. Like, I've built relationships, I've connected with people, I've done them right. And it really was that sort of, serve to sell model. I did such a good job with them that when I said, I'm also doing this, great. In the newer business stuff that I do, the podcast that we do is huge. And I also have a community where people can come in. It's called 3 Day Weekend Club. And part of it's free, part of it is a premium to it. And just helping people get there and do their thing. So very much that traditional educational based model. I also do videos and different things like that. But at the end of the day, for me, I haven't figured out Instagram. I'm not great at kissy face. And that's kind of it's a bad joke. It's bitterness. If I was better at it, I'd do it. But I'm good at connecting with people. I'm good at LinkedIn. LinkedIn, the way I see it, is real. It's fundamentally sound. When somebody recommends you, it's real. And so I've built a lot of my network that way, just person to person. And obviously there's sometimes the noise of people every 2 minutes trying to pitch you on LinkedIn. But even those people, they're like me, they're trying to do something, they're trying a different approach. So a lot of it's just really being nice to people and connecting with people, but building relationships along the way. And then when I really want to learn something, I used to do courses, and I still do that sometimes, but the better thing I found, which is also a marketing thing, is I intern. So if somebody, I'm 49, but if there's something I really want to learn and somebody's awesome at it, say, hey, well, when's the next time you're hosting this virtual live event? What's next? Let me intern with you. I'll help you. I'll be that person that does all the work for you. All I'm asking is you just tell me how you do it. And so in that sense, then you also build relationships with people that are high quality, and you get access to them that you're not going to get and actually for less money than if you paid for the course. But of course, you have to deliver. If you say you're going to do something, then, so that's a time investment. But for me, relationship, relationship, relationship. And one of the biggest mistakes I made related to trying to scale a business in a business model where relationship wasn't relevant, which some people can do well, but I'm horrible at that. So for me, it was like, I'm not that guy that can just internet market and sell stuff. I'm not yet that guy. So for me, that model was all about internet and positioning and savvy. And I'm like, I'm not that person. So a lot of it has just been that the reason why the marketing and networking works better for me, not that it's empirically better, but it's aligned with who I am. I'm a people person. I like connecting with people. I like supporting people in their goals and dreams. And for whatever reason, things have worked out. Like I tell people, I get to keep playing this entrepreneur game. It's been over 20 years. So it might not always go according to plan. I'm not a planner. I don't plan much more than about 3 to 6 months in advance, even though I kind of know where I'm going. But I believe there's something higher going on, some divine thing going on. And I kind of try to do my best to help people, not trying to say I'm holier than thou, but it's worked out. So I keep doing that.
So how did it work for you? I mean, I lost my income because I'm in Canada and I was flying down to speak at conferences in the US nonstop in 2019. And then I kind of got shut down with the borders. So, I mean, you're saying you pretty much made your living with people. So how has it worked out?
Sure. So, and what I mean by that too is, okay, so I leave my employee situation. I take some training, some solid trainings on a certain type of financial advising that involves charitable giving. This is right around 2000. And the core of it is people who have lots of money because their stocks are just performing for the roof, and there's some tax strategies. Well, the bubble bursts. So boom, just like that, everything that I just studied for 6 months, I go through all the money that I'd set aside, and I'm doing some just basic consulting for one of my clients one day. And they say, well, you know what? We need a software that could do this. And I happen to be pretty good at just basic Excel programming. So I made that, but I was open, I was listening, and again, had a good relationship with the client. And so that's something I never even planned on doing has paid over 80% of my bills for the last 20 plus years. So I'm very grateful that I guess I was desperate enough, like, sure, software, because I thought I was going to be a sales coach or I had a different vision of what it was going to be like. But it really was me going out and saying, how can I help you with your business? But being confident enough, and this, I guess, maybe borrowing that confidence from being the child of an entrepreneur and a very well-adjusted mother to say, yeah, I can do this. I can figure this out. And so, maybe some people don't have that. I knew I also had financial fallback that I could. So in that sense, yeah, I've had perhaps a better chance than others. But for me, just finding out what that person wants and not getting caught up in needing 10,000 customers or 10 million customers, 10, 15 customers that pay well enough, 20, 30, perfect. That's all I need.
That's great. That is great. Now we're going to get to the naked part. Are you ready?
I am.
We're going to talk about your most expensive marketing mistake that you made. So tell us about that.
Sure. So it was like most mistakes, something that seemed to be a good idea. And I know we all kind of believe that if we throw up money, the entrepreneurial gods will shine down upon us and give us wealth because we took a risk. And it doesn't work that way if you figure that out quickly enough. So I have a software business, and a friend had put together this coaching program around building iPhone apps. This is about 10, 12 years ago. Timing was good. And again, from the mechanic standpoint, I thought I knew what I could build, had an app that was built. But I hadn't really done the research to see, number one, if that particular app was going to be hot or not. But more than that, I also, and this was that mistake too, where I was out of my element. I had built my business on marketing people to people. iPhone store is not people to people. It's you've got to have this awesome idea that's viral. And so I put, about $18,000 and the more painful part was the 600 hours into this. Ooh. And made back about $100, not net $100, made back like $100. But thank God, one of the things I do is I track my time and where I invest my time and my ROI. So after a while, I just started thinking about it. I said, wait, well, let me get this straight. Here I am. I'm in Naples, Florida, in the United States, one of the best locations, people to people, that you can market. And I'm trying to compete with the people that are hungrier than I am, that are smarter than I am, that are younger than I am, that are working harder than I am in different countries. And I'm throwing away my competitive advantage, and I'm horrible at this type of marketing. And I don't say that as like to put myself down. I'm really good at person-to-person marketing. I'm just horrible at the other type. So It was just a lack of awareness. I don't think it was ego. It was like, oh, this seems like a great opportunity. It was naivety, not doing enough research and not realizing how many variables could kick my butt. But they did. So in essence, I paid $300 an hour to lose money. But I learned a few things. And, as you know, there's the life tuition that comes with being an entrepreneur, which is part of that school hard knocks. So that's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason why I'm doing this, right? Because it gets people to start talking about, yeah, I made that mistake too. And so I just have to say that one of the mistakes that burns me is related to what you're talking about. And I love that you're talking about it. I did not give you money to say this because this is what I do for a living, but I'm a niching coach. So I help people figure out what is the gap in the market and how are they going to position themselves into that niche. And the thing that burns me the most is when people decide by throwing spaghetti at the wall what that niche is going to be. And when I worked at Pepsi, Pizza Hut, Frito-Lay, we used to do millions of dollars of worth of research to figure that out. If I had just guessed it, I would have been fired. So that's what it burns me, because when I left the corporate world, like everything was all very research driven and insights driven. And then like when I met people like us after coming out of that corporate space, it was just like, everybody's guessing at it, Wade. Everybody's guessing at it. They're like, okay, I'm going to advertise with Facebook and here's how much money I'm going to spend. And I'm like, do you have any idea who the exact target is? And, oh, I'm guessing at it. Or they have some sort of like age demographic. And I'm thinking, like, people don't hang out by age anymore. It's by interest. Like it's by industry or interest. So I so hear you. And I've met so many horror stories, sadly, of people who have wasted years and years. That you were lucky you didn't waste that much. I mean, it was 18, yes, 600 hours, but I mean, they've wasted their lives trying to figure it out and still like stuck. And it's just, so thank you for talking about that mistake. That's really great. So in parting, do you have any marketing advice for our viewers and listeners?
I would say you definitely, despite some of the advice that's out there today, you do want to mentor and learn from somebody. And there's a distinction between learning from somebody and trying to be them. So in podcasting, you and I know there's certain best practices, but that doesn't mean I'm going to try to speak like one of the top podcasters. I'm going to have my vision, my way of doing things. And I think there's a balance of that. And then in general, just bootstrap. Invest your time. If you want to throw time at something, great, but put limits on it. I'm going to throw 5 hours at this, 10 hours at this, 20 hours at this, and see what comes of it. And then yes, the micro investments. If it's Facebook ads, sure, invest $25 or something. You can literally, you're paying for education. But this whole magical idea that if I choose to do something, if I'm excited about something, that's just as naive as a 16-year-old saying, I really like this person, I think they're cute, then we should be married and everything's going to just all work out. Yeah, there's some nice feelings there, but it doesn't mean that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Wise words of advice. So where can our viewers and listeners reach you?
Sure. The best place if they want to start creating that 3-day weekend type lifestyle is to go to 3dayweekendclub.com. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the books I've written that go across a lot of different topics as well, spirituality, personal growth, finance, parenting, you can go to wadegalt.com, WADEGALT.com.
Thank you so much for being on our show.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Chala.